Yeah, hi, my name is Sandy Piergallini. I've been making knives for sale for about 26 years now. I am a voting member of the Knife Makers Guild. I'm a member and board member of the Florida Knife Makers Association. I've also been president of the Gator Cutlery Club for about 18 years now. Nobody else wants the job, of course. I've been making knives as a hobby until about 4 years ago, when I retired from the construction business. And I enjoy making user knives, hunters, skinners, camp knives, and I really like to make brands of dirk knives, Mediterranean dirks to be specific. And I'd like to show you one of those right now, if I may. Mediterranean dirk. Used one time as a Vendetta knife, supposedly, as the story goes. Origination is probably Greece, Turkey, or Italy. And as a Vendetta knife, it was left in the body after the damage was done. But that's the history of the Vendetta knives as I know it. This one's a 3-layer butt welded steel by Jerry Rados. Bolsters are Damascus, also hand carved. File work all the way, full taper on the knife. Made my own pins, Damascus pins as well. And that's about the story on this knife. And as far as camp knives go, this is probably more or less one of my miniatures, even though it's 14 inches long. Old buffalo skinner, as it's known. What was the other name for these? What we used to call these?
Green River.
Green River pattern. Yeah, that's what it is. It's basically a Green River pattern, but in the form of a buffalo skinner. 440C came out of 3-inch stock. Nickel silver bolsters. Again, full taper on the knife from front to back. Mastodon ivory handles. A little bit of thumb file work. Hidden pins in the nickel silver bolsters that are dovetailed. Everything is done dovetailed. And I just enjoy the heck out of making big camp knives. And the guys I sell them to enjoy them as well. And I know it's shiny, but it's a user, a full user. Next. Little fancier camp knife or hunting knife. Again, full taper. Jerry Rados Damascus, a really tight ladder pattern. Dovetail bolsters, carved, hand carved butt. File work with liners. Stuff I really like to make. I've probably sold more dirks and these type of hunters, fancy hunters, than anything else that I've ever made. Just enjoy doing it. This is one of my favorite patterns that I've made in stainless steel, Damascus, just raw carbon steel as well. I actually plagiarized this pattern from a famous knife maker. The name escapes me right now. However, with Rados steel on here with a tight ladder pattern, as well as in the bolsters. This knife came out of 1 bar of Rados steel. You can imagine what that costs. In any event, I do blind pins, and I do have all Damascus pins went into Damascus. I was able to find a good supply of them, as well as file work the entire handle inside and out, carved the butt bolster, hand checkered all the front bolsters, dovetailed and on a 45-degree angle. This one happens to have bark ivory handles on it. But alongside of the file work of the actual blade steel are nickel silver liners that are also file worked, both inside and out. There's probably a good 20 hours in this knife, but it's just stuff that you can't rush. I haven't made very many folders. When I do it, it's by order only. This happens to be a little easy open. that I copied from another old knife, utility blade like a sheep's foot blade. It's a walking, talking pocket knife, all out of Damascus steel. This happens to be Alabama Damascus. I've file worked the scales on it, which are solid Damascus. The blade is in a sheep's foot blade, and it's just a slip joint. But I do like them to walk and talk, as this one does. And I enjoy making these, but not as much as I do the camp knives or skinners or hunters. I do have a brochure available for my knives, especially the knives that I really like to make, which are the hunters, the skinners, the camp knives. What my brochure will also say in it is that I prefer natural handle materials, such as mastodon ivory, like in this knife right here. Some beautiful blues and greens, no cracks, no flaws. Most of the good knife makers will pick out premium handle materials. I like sheep horn, buffalo horn, natural woods, and a lot of them that have not been stabilized but don't need stabilizing. Ebonies, some of the cocobolas. I do make my own leather sheaths. They're not a whole lot to look at, but they are a good leather sheath that is all wet molded to the knife individually. Nothing's made ahead of time. They're all molded to the particular knife in general. But most of my handle materials will be of natural materials. Wood, horn, bone, ivories, and that sort of thing. I just wanted to also point out a few other knives that I made. My wife and I are members of the Art Lounge Gallery in Plant City, Florida. And I come in as a craftsman and do display my knives here. But and they asked me to make up a little collage of various knives that I've made. This bottom right corner are 15 prototype knives that were made for a Special Forces Army captain, retired. And 4 of those knives on this board are now being produced, mass-produced here in the United States. Others up there, I don't know, Kerry, if you can get the top up there, the Eagle knife. That was scrimmed and engraved by Fred Harrington. It's 15 inches long out of 3/8 inch 440C stainless with a big hollow grind on it and a mirror finish. That was one of the more expensive knives I've ever sold. And in actuality, bought it back and resold it 3 times. It's been around, but it's a nice one. Also, in the top left-hand corner is a real large push dagger that was made with giraffe bone handles, also by the same Army captain that designed these other prototypes on the wall here. That knife appeared in one of the Blade magazines as one of the largest push daggers going. Foul worked, Damascus steel, hollow ground. Just a big, big sticker. In my shop, I talk your ear off, because of course I talk about the tools and how I do this and how I do that. People that still don't believe that all I use when I grind a big blade like that is a little block of wood to hold the steel. I mean, just a tiny block of wood. It's my jig right there.
Your fingers?
My fingers. And the little block of wood just keeps the heat off the skin, that's all. All ground by eyeball, no jigs, no nothing.